Wrestling Podcast. I'm Slim. Just a quick note before we start. New Japan is on at the moment. I do have it sitting there watching it. Just because I want to know who wins in the G1, which we will get to at the end of the episode. So, to begin with, the champion, me, obviously, will also say that Thursday there will be Clash of Champions predictions out. And then next Thursday, there will be NXT TakeOver predictions out. And other than that, that's all the admin I have to do. Other than, there is one other thing. Whale Dong, still haven't answered my call out. So I'm calling you out again. However, it doesn't seem like you will answer my call out. So just know that if by the time next World Wrestling Podcast comes out, by that time, if you haven't answered, then you're a pussy. You're a pussy who doesn't want to face the champ. And that's understandable. But you're still a pussy. Anyway, now let's get on to Raw. And so Raw this week starts with Cole telling us that both Phillips and Samoa Joe are off this week. And replacing Joe is Dolph Ziggler. McIntyre comes out to kick the show off. Before Drew says anything, we see how we kicked off last week's show and the rivalry between Drew and Orton. Drew then says that he's lucky that he only has a fractured jaw since Orton was going to do so much more. But Orton is lucky that he still has a head after the 3 claymores that Drew hit last week. Drew then challenges Orton to an ambulance match at Clash of Champions. Drew then talks about the origins of the Claymore kick. Then he shows the victims of the Claymore. Adam Pearce then comes down and says that we don't know the severity of Orton's injuries, so he might not be at Clash. If he is, so if Keith Lee beats Drew McIntyre later, then Lee will face Drew for the title at Clash. Only if Orton can't make it. Lee then comes out and shakes Drew's hand, but holds on. Drew then does the same. Then we cut to break. Yeah. Then we get the Champions versus Champions match between the Street Profits and Cesaro and Nakamura. During Cesaro and Nakamura's entrance, we get a promo from Cesaro and Nakamura who say that on SmackDown the Profits ruin the Champions Lounge, and they will ruin the perception that the Profits are the best tag team in the company. Good match. Profits win by pinfall after Dawkins hits a splash on Cesaro. WWE cannot decide what the hell the cash out is. Originally it was the tag finisher of the Profits, right? Then it became the spinebuster from Dawkins. And now it's the splash that Dawkins hits. So I've got no frigging clue. We then get a promo package for Mickie James. Backstage, Angel Garza is talking to Lana, who is making a case for Natalya to have Mickie shot, and is shocked that Mickie got a shot at Asuka in the first place because she only asked. Vega and Andrade show up and... Hang on. Oh, and they have a go at Garza for leaving Andrade high and dry 2 weeks ago, and for causing them to not be the champions. Garza says that Andrade is the one who lost the match last week, so she should be yelling at him. She then stops them from rolling before saying she can't do this anymore, and leaving. When she's gone, Andrade and Angel Garza brawl. Backstage, we see the Mysterio family talking. Then we have Cedric Alexander with the Hurt Business versus Ricochet with Apollo Crews. During Cedric's entrance, we see what happened last week when Cedric joined the Hurt Business. Before Ricochet's entrance, MVP says that that business is booming, and Cedric says that being with Apollo and Ricochet left him broken. As he's going to say more, Ricochet and Apollo interrupt, and Apollo says that Cedric is weak-minded and was manipulated into joining, but now he has to live with this decision. Ricochet cuts Shelton off, who had started to speak. Hang on. Oh. So he could say that now he and Apollo are coming for Cedric. Yeah, okay. He cut him off so he could say that. Yeah, right, I get that now. I wrote it weird. During the match, Lashley attempts to attack Apollo, but Eric comes out and the two brawl. Pretty good match. Cedric won by pinfall with the lumbar check, in which Ricochet sold the shit out of. It was actually a really cool sell. It was awesome. Post-match, Retribution show up on the Tron and say that when you sell your soul to corruption, then you become corrupt, and they are preparing to prove their point, and everyone else will be plunged into oblivion. Backstage interview with Mickie James, who says that what drives her right now is that she knows tonight might be her last chance at the Raw Women's title. Then we get Asuka defending the Raw Women's title against Mickie James. Pretty good match. Asuka won when the ref declared that Mickie couldn't compete anymore, except she had Asuka in a pin seconds before. Post-match, Vega comes out and says she wasted her career on managing ingrates. Vega then says that she's ready for Asuka and slaps Asuka as she starts speaking Japanese. What I was going to say was the ending of that match was botched because Mickie was surprised, Asuka was surprised that the ref called it off. So yeah, it was a good match, but the ending was After Asuka's entrance, but before Mickey's, we go backstage where Adam Pearce is yelling at security because they can't stop Retribution. So the Hurt Business show up and say that they will stop Retribution. Backstage interview with Keith Lee now, who says he will do what he must to become WWE Champion. Keith also says that he doesn't want to take advantage of Drew's injury. However, like he said, he will do what he must. Then we have Bobby Lashley with MVP versus Eric. MVP joins commentary. Decent match, short. Lashley wins by submission with the Hurt Lock. MVP is now on commentary for the rest of the show. Backstage interview with Kevin Owens, who says that he doesn't know why Aleister Black has a vendetta against him. Kev then asks how he's going to inflict so much punishment that he gets even with Black, that makes Black run back to his hidey hole, but he doesn't really care because he's Kevin Owens. Backstage, Braun Strowman shows up to Raw Underground, and the bouncer is actually a lot taller than Braun. We then see what happened last week between Murphy and the Mysterio family. Backstage, we see Rollins in the locker room, not us, when Murphy shows up and Rollins says he understands that the Mysterio family ganged up on Murphy and beat him with kendo sticks. Rollins then says that tonight is an opportunity and he asks if Murphy is ready for his role tonight. Murphy says yes. Rollins slaps him, holds him up against the lockers by his jaw, and tells him his role is to stay in the back so Rollins doesn't have to deal with him. Murphy says okay, and Rollins slaps him, grabs him again, and asks if he's got it. Murphy replies with, yes sir. Side note here, we have a Kit Kat ad where R-Truth is talking to the Kit Kat. Liv Morgan shows up to help Truth break it. It was very, very funny. Then we are told that Mandy Rose is coming to Raw due to Miz pulling some strings to get her traded. We then get the steel cage match between Seth Rollins and Dominic. Before Dominic's entrance, we have a backstage interview with the Mysterio family. Dominic says that he has to do this. Ray says that he knows about cage matches, and so they will be out there, and maybe Rollins should be worried about Dominic. During the match, Murphy shows up and gives Rollins a kendo stick. Ray also gives Dominic a kendo stick later in the match. Toward the end of the match, Murphy accidentally threw the cage door into Rollins. Really good match. Rollins wins by pinfall after hitting 2 stomps. Post-match, Rollins attacks Murphy and slams the cage door into him for not listening. Aaliyah checks on Murphy before getting in the ring to check on Dominic, who looks injured, but isn't, obviously, because he's got a number 1 contenders tag title match on Raw this week, or next week. He's teaming with Humberto Carrillo. against Andrade and Angel Garza and Rollins and Murphy. We then go to Raw Underground where Ziggler beats someone, then fights Riddick Moss until Braun shows up. Moss tries to fight him but loses. Braun also beats Ziggler. Backstage interview with McIntyre, who says he only showed up last week during Orton's match after Orton and RKO'd Keith. Keith shows up and says that the only match of Keith that Drew hasn't interfered in is the one where he beats Orton, and he believes that Drew is concerned that Lee will beat him too. The two then start brawling after Lee touches the WWE Championship. Then we go back to Raw Underground where Titus shows up, and we also see Braun beating up someone. Moss then gets back in the ring but gets taken out again. Titus shows up and takes Braun down, but Braun manages to choke Titus out. Then we get Kevin Owens versus Aleister Black. Good match. Owens won by pinfall after Black was distracted when the lights flickered and Owens hit the stunner. Backstage, Lee and McIntyre continue their brawl. Then we get the Riot Squad versus Natalya and Lana. Nia and Baszler are on commentary. During the Riot Squad's entrance, we get a promo with the Riot Squad where they say that Baszler and Nia aren't a real team, and at Clash, Riot Squad will take their titles. Decent match. Riot Squad win by pinfall after they hit the side code breaker right kick combo. Post-match, the women's tag champs attack Natalya and put Lana through the announcers table. Back to Raw Underground where Braun is still beating people up and Moss gets back into fight Braun again. So does Dolph, and even together, Braun wins. Babatunde, which I think his name is Dabba-Kato or something, I don't know, but Babatunde then gets in the ring and Shane says that this is next week's match. Main event time, and it's Drew McIntyre versus Keith Lee. If Keith Lee wins, then provided Randy Orton can't compete at Clash, Keith will take his spot. Towards the end of the match, Retribution show up and they beat down Drew and Lee until Hurt Business come out and take on the entire Retribution group, because there was a lot of them. They take them all on, and Drew and Keith Lee then flip over the top rope onto everyone, and the only people left standing at the end of the show are Drew and Keith Lee, who stare at each other. Alright, so moving on to AEW Dark, and this week's Dark has 11 matches. Vader Scott is also on commentary this week. First match of the night is Red Velvet vs Brandy Rhodes with Dustin Rhodes and Lil Bram Bram. During the match, Anna Jay comes out and it distracts Brandy. Good match. Brandy wins by submission with the Queen Slayer that she locks in while staring at Anna Jay, because that is Anna Jay's finisher. Then we get Daniel Garcia and Kevin Blackwood versus the Butcher and the Blade with Eddie Kingston. Match begins when Butcher and Blade attack before the bell. Good match. Butcher and Blade win by pinfall after hitting full death on Garcia. After that, it's Penelope Ford with Kip Sabian versus Danny Jordan. Good match. Ford wins by pinfall with Fisherman Suplex with the bridge. Then it's Megabyte Ronnie versus the FTW World Champion Brian Cage. Ricky Starks is on commentary and he joins it for the next few matches. During the match, Ronnie hits a people's elbow with a hot dog. As in, he has a hot dog, does the whole run thing, and as he's going for the elbow, he takes a bite. Because he's a competitive eater. Good match, very fun. Cage won by pinfall after hitting the drill claw. We then get Santana and Ortiz versus Griff Garrison and Brian Pillman Jr. Really good match. Santana and Ortiz win by pinfall after hitting the powerbomb kick combo on Pillman. Then we have Jesse Sorensen versus Will Hobbs. Squash match for Hobbs, who wins by pinfall with the Oklahoma Stampede. Next up is Skylar Moore and Rache Chanel versus Diamante and Ivelisse. Good match. Diamante and Ivelisse win by pinfall after Ivelisse hit the rolling snapmare kick on Moore. We then have Colt Cabana with the rest of the Dark Order versus, minus Mr. Brody Lee versus QT Marshall with Ali. During the match, Grayson has a go at Colt for clean breaking in the corner, Also during the match, Grayson lays QT out with a massive pump knee, while Uno had Colt and the ref distracted. Really good match. Colt won by pinfall after hitting the discus clothesline. Next, we get Brandon Cutler versus Peter Avalon with Leva Bates. Match starts when the two start brawling before the bell. Really good match. Nobody won because it was a double countout. Post-match, Leva Bates gets left alone in the ring because she was trying to play peacekeeper on both sides. After that, we get Max Stardom and Dante Smiley versus Best Friends. Good match. Best Friends win by pinfall with a pile driver. Main event time, and it's Private Party and the Gun Club with Colton Gunn versus the Dark Order, that being Uno, Grayson, 3 and 4, with the rest of the Dark Order minus Brody Lee and Colt Cabana. Good match. Dark Order win by pinfall after hitting the fatality on Austin Gunn. Moving on to AEW Dynamite. The show starts with FTR with Tully Blanchard versus the Jurassic Express with Marco Stunt. During Jurassic Express's entrance, the Young Bucks come out and they super kick the referee. Then they go to gorilla position and pay Tony Khan their fines. They then walk past FTR, who have a go at them, but Bucks keep walking. During the match, Luchasaurus takes out half of the crowd when he goes to dive onto Cash. Really good match. FTR win by pin. They win after Dax reverses a sunset flip pin, and Cash holds onto Dax's arm to help secure the win. So yes, it was by pinfall. I just didn't write that in. Backstage, we see Matt Hardy on the ground, clutching his leg, and Private Party are asked what happened. They say they don't know. Jericho and Hager show up and mock Matt, then tell Private Party they will see them later. Then we have Frankie Kazarian versus Hangman Page. Kenny Omega is on commentary. Great match. Hangman won by pinfall after hitting the buckshot lariat. We then get a promo package for the parking lot fight later. Then we get MJF with Wardlow versus Shawn Dean. The match is literally poke to the eye, salt of the earth. MJF wins by submission. Post-match, MJF gets on the mic and says that he's a very honest man. Then he says Moxley cheated it all out, and from now on, MJF wants to be called the undefeated, undisputed, uncrowned world champion of AEW. MJF then says that he needs to be a part of a group to get a fair chance in this company, so he will make his decision some other time. Then Taz talks about Ricky Starks' spear and Rochambeau. In the ring, we then have Eddie Kingston, the Lucha Bros, and the Butcher and the Blade. Kingston says he has 3 points to make. Number 1, he was never eliminated from the Battle Royal. Number 2, they are a family. Kingston tells Butcher and Blade to find a victim. They find 2 that they and the Lucha Bros destroy. Number 3, Blade needs to get his house in order. Next, we get Private Party versus the Inner Circle, that being Jericho and Hager, with Floyd. Pretty good match. Inner Circle wins by pinfall with the Judas effect on Cassidy. Post-match, Jericho continues the assault on Cassidy and even puts him in the walls of Jericho. Quen ends up taking Jericho out and Hager has to drag him out of the ring. After that, we get Ivelisse with Diamante taking on Thunder Rosa for the NWA Women's Championship. Pretty good match. Thunder Rosa retained by pinfall after hitting a tombstone piledriver. Post-match, Diamante attacks Thunder Rosa, but Hikaru Shida comes out from the crowd to defend her. We then look at Myro's debut last week. Then we see Myro doing bench presses while Kip Sabian talks about how good he is and Myro is. Then Myro says that he will provide the best bachelor party. Then Lance Archer comes out and attacks Fuego del Sol, and then Jake Roberts says that that is an entrance. He also says Lance isn't happy about it, but they need 2 partners, and Roberts says that if he has to lay in bed with the devil, he would just as soon lay in bed with the Tasmanian devil, and invites Taz out. Taz comes out and says that Team Taz is happy to team with Roberts and Lance. Taz then says that when Archer wins the AEW World Championship, Brian Cage gets first shot. Archer says that he'll destroy Moxley, and then Archer and Cage will go on... No, they will go Godzilla on Daly's place. I was about to say they were going to go to Gorilla position, but I read Godzilla wrong. Moxley comes out, but Cage and Starks attack Moxley until Will Hobbs shows up with a chair to run off Team Taz. Moxley then says that Will Hobbs is a part of his team, and Mox also tells Darby to get his ass to Jacksonville because they have a 6-man tag match and they're going to war. Main event time, and it's the parking lot fight between Best Friends and Santana and Ortiz. Santana gets busted open early in the fight. Lots of car-based shenanigans, including Ortiz throwing a sledgehammer at Chuck's head, but it goes through a car windscreen instead. Ortiz's elbow and back get cut open during the fight. Trent's eye looks like it's busted open at some point, and Santana and Ortiz put Trent through the windscreen of a car, which cuts up his back. Toward the end, Orange Cassidy comes out of the boot of a car with a chain on his hand, and KO's... I was going to say Sonata, but that's... No. Santana with the orange punch. Very entertaining fight. Best Friends win by pinfall after Chuck pole drives Santana on the bottom of a car, and Trent hits the crunchy on Ortiz through some plywood. That was bridged across the tray of a ute for the 3. Post-fight, Sue picks up Best Friends in a minivan before she drives away, though. She gives Santana and Ortiz the bird, which apparently she had to be convinced to do. Moving on, though, to NXT, and Wade Barrett has signed to be an NXT commentator, which is great news, because I'm actually enjoying him on commentary. Would prefer him to be in the ring, but, you know, maybe at some point they just sort of go, we'll bring you back. Maybe he's back in the Rumble. Ooh, that could be cool. Maybe, in my how I would book the Rumbles, I'll do separate video for each Rumble. I might have Wade Barrett in the Rumble. Who knows? You'll have to watch to find out. Not that I'm going to be doing it for a little while. Anyway, we start the show with a recap of what happened last week. We then kick the show off with Shotzi Blackheart versus Io Shirai, which was a pretty good match. Shirai won by pinfall with the outside moonsault, where only her feet hit Shotzi. Post-match, Io helps Shotzi up, and the two shake hands. Then we get a promo for Tommaso Ciampa, who was a match next. Because, you know, then we have Tommaso Ciampa versus Desmond Troy. Good match, sort of a squash. Ciampa wins by pinfall with Willow's Bell. Post-match, Jake Atlas comes out and says that he isn't a coward, and next week he'll show Ciampa how dangerous he can be. We then go to earlier in the day where we see Drake Maverick showing up. Drake says that he and Killian Dane have a common enemy, and they will beat the Undisputed Era. He then says that, sure, Dane hasn't talked to him, and he has punched him in the face a couple of times. And he doesn't have Dane's phone number, but it's fine, they're on the same page. Then we have an interview with Finn Balor. Finn says that Cole is undisputed, but there is only one prince. Finn then says that he's the greatest champion, and now people need to earn the opportunity to face him, and the line starts here. Then we have Austin Theory versus Kushida. Before the match, Theory gets on the mic and says last week Bronson Reed beating him was a fluke, and then issues an open challenge that Kushida answers, obviously, if he's fighting Kushida. However, we didn't know that. It was, when Kushida answers, he attacks Theory before the bell. Kushida is absolutely pissed off. Kushida won by submission with the hoverboard lock. It was a good match. Post-match, Kushida doesn't let go of the hoverboard lock. We then have Candice and Johnny. Candice has a go at Tegan for what happened, and Johnny has a go at her for breaking the TV. Candice then says that she'll win the Battle Royal next week and go to TakeOver to take on Io for the title. Johnny says that he just brought a new TV and he'll send Tegan the bill, but the TV won't be there till tomorrow, so they will have to watch a shit TV. Then we get Breezango defending the NXT tag titles against Imperium, that being Eichner and Bartel. Imperium run straight to the ring and the two teams start brawling. Really good match. Breezango retain by pinfall after Imperium goes for the European bomb, but Bartel gets knocked off the top rope and Breeze hits a Hurricanrana on Eichner and hooks the legs to pick up the 3. After that, we get Jesse Kamea and Xia Li versus Caden Carter and Kacy Catanzaro. Good match. Carter and Catanzaro win by pinfall after hitting a scissor kick on Xia while Carter had her in a crucifix, and Kacy flips over while holding her legs to get the pin. Post-match, Kacy and Caden try to get a fist bump from Kamea and Xia, but Xia leaves them high and dry. Backstage, Maverick finds Dane, who says that if Drake is fighting Era, then he's doing it by himself because he told him last week that he isn't Drake's friend or tag team partner. We then have Tegan Nox, who says Candice has changed and says that next week she'll win the Battle Royal. Then we get the Undisputed Era, that being Fish and Strong versus Drake Maverick and Killian Dane, but Dane doesn't come out making it a 2-on-1 handicap match, but not officially. Backstage, during the match, we see Killian Dane watching and laughing at Maverick every time he gets punched. Regal shows up and tells Dane to go and help Maverick. Dane says he didn't sign up for it, and Dane then comes out and chucks Maverick into the ring, goes to leave until Strong calls him a fat dork. So he comes back and beats up the Undisputed Era. Maverick and Dane win by DQ when Fish attacks Dane with a chair. Post-match, Dane knocks out Maverick again. In the parking lot, we see Jake Atlas, who says that he is going to show Ciampa that Ciampa lit a fire under him when Ciampa attacked him. Ciampa then attacks Atlas from behind, and Kyle O'Reilly shows up and tells Ciampa to save it for their match next week. Ciampa says that he'll be seeing Atlas next week. He'll be seeing Kyle O'Reilly too. We then get told that we have a Gauntlet Eliminator match to determine who will face Bella for the NXT title at TakeOver next week. Sort of. The match will take place next week. TakeOver is for 2 weeks. The rules are that 2 men will start in the ring. After 4 minutes, a new man will enter. The only way to be eliminated is by pinfall or submission. There will be 5 competitors, 3 of which have been announced. Yeah, that's the right word. I was just sort of trying to think of the word. So yeah. The 3 people that have been announced so far are Kushida, Cameron Grimes, and Kyle O'Reilly. Main event time, and it's Timothy Thatcher versus Damian Priest for the North American Championship. Pretty good match. Priest retains by pinfall after hitting the Reckoning. Moving on to NXT UK, and this week's NXT UK starts with a hype package to hype up the return of NXT UK. Obviously. It then kicks off with Sid Scala about to say what we're beginning with when he's cut off by Ilya Dragunov, who is the number 1 contender for Walter's NXT UK Championship. Dragunov says that he's sorry to interrupt, but he's been waiting 6 months. 6 months he's been waiting for a fight, and he is cut off by Noam Dar, who says Dragunov needs anger management, and Dragunov dives onto Dar. The 2 start brawling. Scala says that Dragunov will take on Dar in the main event of the show. The opening contest is the NXT UK Tag Team Champions Gallus, Mark, Coffey, and Wolfgang, that is, versus Kenny Williams and Amir Jordan. Originally it was meant to be for the tag titles, but obviously they changed that because it's a non-title match. Pretty good match though. Gallus won by pinfall after hitting double impact on Jordan. Post-match, some of the NXT UK tag teams come out, including The Hunt, Pretty Deadly, Ashton Smith and Oliver Carter, Flash Morgan Webster and Mandrews. And on the Tron appears Imperium's Marcel Bartel and Fabian Eichner. Then we see Saxon Huxley, who speaks in riddles while being an insane dude behind a fence. He says he has a match next week, which is revealed to be against Volta. NXT UK Women's Champion Kaylee Ray then comes out and says next week she'll defend her title against Piper Niven. And next week Kaylee Ray will prove why she is a little bit better than Piper Niven. Niven then comes out and says that Kaylee Ray talks too much. And since she talks so much, she should tell the truth about how many times Piper has beaten her. Kaylee Ray says again that she will beat Niven, then tries to attack her, but Niven stops it, and Kaylee Ray, rolls out of the ring and gets out of there. Then we get a promo package for Isla Dawn versus, now, I think it's Aoife Valkyrie, or Aoife Valkyrie, that's it, Aoife Valkyrie. It's spelt weird, but that's how you say it. And that match takes place next. Valkyrie wins by pinfall after hitting the diving split leg drop on a bent over Dawn. We then have a promo package for the Heritage Cup tournament. Also, we are told that next week Pete Dunne will draw the matches for the Heritage Cup tournament. Main event time, and it's Noam Dar versus Ilya Dragunov. During the match, Alexander Wolf comes down to distract Dragunov, and although it did, Dragunov still won by pinfall with the Torpedo Moscow. Pretty good match. Post-match, Volta comes down to stare down with Dragunov. Moving on to SmackDown, and SmackDown this week kicks off with the dirt sheet. Miz says that tonight they will reveal why Bayley attacked Sasha. They will reveal why WWE tried to erase Sami Zayn's title reign. They will talk about what is happening with the Brotherhood, but first they are talking about the departure of Mandy Rose. Miz says that he's not trying to play mind games with Otis, but is trying to help him. Miz says that he is helping Otis focus on cashing in Money in the Bank. Morrison says, or he could just give it to him. Miz then says that Otis will move on from Mandy, and by the looks, Mandy already has. Otis then comes out, attacks Miz and Morrison, and when they try to escape, Tucker brings them back into the ring. Otis stands tall after hitting the Caterpillar and Vader Bomb. Then, as they leave, Otis gets back in the ring and strips the Miz. Backstage, Miz tells Morrison that it's all going to plan. Kayla then asks the Miz if he regrets antagonizing Otis, and Miz gets a call and asks if it was enough, which it appears it was. Then we get Grand Metalik with Lucha House Party versus Cesaro with Nakamura. During Metalik's entrance, we get a promo where Kalisto and Dorado argue. We also get a promo during Cesaro's entrance where he and Nakamura say that Lucha House Party are like moths, and him and Nakamura are the flame. During the match, Lucha House Party distracts Metalik, and eventually Lucha House Party are kicked out. Good match. Cesaro wins by pinfall with the neutralizer. Backstage interview with Jey Uso. Before Jey says anything, we look at what happened last week. Jey then says that last week there was a miscommunication, but he knows Roman has his back, and at Clash, he and Reigns will go at it again, but this time for the Universal title. He then welcomes Sheamus and Corbin to the Uso Penitentiary. Matt Riddle is then on, and he says bro in a series of emotions. Like if he's happy, bro. If he's sad, bro. Shit like that. We then get a moment of bliss with Alexa Bliss's guest being Nikki Cross. Nikki says that this time will be different because there's no Sasha. Nikki also says that at Clash she will become the new SmackDown Women's Champion. Nikki then asks Alexa what's going on. Alexa says she doesn't know how to explain it because she doesn't understand it. And at that point, Lacey Evans interrupts. Lacey says the only reason Cross won last week was because she was thrown off her game when Alexa left. She then says that Nikki won't beat Bayley because she's too nice. Lacey and Nikki then brawl before going to the ring for their match. Then we have Nikki Cross versus Lacey Evans. Alexa is on commentary. During the match, Lacey rubs hand sanitizer in Nikki's eyes. Nikki ends up winning by pinfall after hitting the rope hung twisting neck breaker. It was a good match. Sort of, kind of, not really. It was decent. Post-match, Lacey brings up the Fiend, which sends Alexa into the trance. She hits Sister Abigail on Lacey before leaving. We then get a hype package for Jay versus Roman. Then we have an interview with Sasha Banks. Before Sasha says anything, we look at the attack. Sasha then says that she's still here and then denies using Bayley. But now she's nothing to Bayley. Sasha then tells Bayley that she's an idiot because she is nothing without Sasha. And now that she's useless to Bayley, one day she'll take SmackDown Women's title from her. Bayley then attacks Sasha from behind with a chair, but she's stopped before she can stomp on it after she puts it on Sasha's head. We then have AJ Styles vs Sami Zayn, and as Zayn is arguing with Greg Hamilton about not announcing him as Intercontinental Champ, Styles attacks him from behind, then throws him into the ring, and the match gets underway. Pretty good match. Styles won by pinfall after he rolled Sami up and grabbed the tights, which came after Sami tried to do the same thing, but was caught grabbing the tights. Post-match, Sami attacks Styles, and Jeff Hardy comes out and attacks both Sami and Styles. He then gets a ladder and hits a twist of fate, and as he climbs it to hit a swanton, Sami moves. Jeff then gets on the mic and says that at Clash they will have a triple threat ladder match for the Intercontinental title because he's sick of being called a cheat. Backstage, Otis is handed a lawsuit, and when he's told he's been served, he wants to know if it's a buffet. Tucker then reads the thingo, the lawsuit, and everything Otis is being sued for. He reads what it says and everything that Otis is being sued for, and says that Miz and Morrison will take Otis to court if by the end of next week's show Otis doesn't relinquish the Money in the Bank. Backstage, Corbin and Sheamus are talking about their Samoan street fight later, when the security guard that helped Sheamus jump Big E shows up, and he tells Sheamus that his car is being towed. When Sheamus goes out there, Big E is already there and manages to... and as he goes to attack Sheamus, Sheamus manages to get away. But the security guard isn't so lucky and Big E attacks him, puts him through the windscreen of a car, then puts him in the boot. Adam Pearce shows up and tells Big E to leave the building. Then we see the mystery girl who has been getting dressed over the past couple of weeks. This time she turns around with a mirror in front of her face, but you can clearly see that it's Carmella. Main event time, and it's a Samoan street fight between Reigns and Jay with Paul Heyman versus Sheamus and King Corbin. Roman is out first, and he gets on the mic and says that this is his yard. Good match. Reigns and Jay win by pinfall after Jay hits Corbin in the head with the Universal title. Then Reigns spears Corbin, and Jay hits the big splash. Post-match, Jay hands the Universal title to Roman, which looks fine, and then as Jay is leaving, Roman looks pissed. Moving on to 205 Live, and Nigel McGuinness is back on commentary this week. We kick the show off with Eli Knight versus Ariya Daivari. Squash match, Daivari wins by pinfall with a hammerlock lariat. It turns out that this is a gauntlet match, and if anyone can beat Daivari, they get $10,000. So he then gets another person to come down, which he beats with the hammerlock lariat. And then the third person comes down, which is the last person in this gauntlet, which Daivari also beats with the hammerlock lariat. We then see what Daivari did to Lorcan when he returned, and how the rest of that match played out. Main event time, and it's Danny Burch versus Tony Nese. During the match, Daivari comes out, which distracts Burch and allows Nese to take over. Daivari then joins commentary. Nese wins by pinfall after hitting the running Nese, which came after Burch was distracted by Daivari. I don't know why I wrote Lorcan, but it's Burch. Now, I do just have to change this a fraction because the final match of the G1, like today's G1, has just happened. And so I'm just going to quickly put, make it alright. Okay, and there we go. Oh wait, hang on. There we go. Alright, so moving on to the standings of the G1 tournament, which obviously the last match of night 2, B block, whatever, has not long finished. I have been watching it. I'm not sure if you've been able to tell, but it is sitting there. I am watching it. So as of right now, in A block, the standings are Osprey, Suzuki, Taichi, Switchblade, and Ibushi on 2 points, while Jeff Cobb, Ishii, Shingo, Yujiro Takahashi, and Okada are on 0. In the B block, Juice Robinson, Toru Yano, Kenta, ZSJ, and Tetsuya Naito are on 2 points, while Yoshihashi, Sanada, Hiroki Goto, Evil, and Hiroshi Tanahashi are on 0. So that is how it's looking. I'm not sure who's going to win. Luckily, we're not doing predictions until the finals anyway. But if I had to hazard a guess, probably Kota Ibushi might win. Maybe Naito, but I don't know. I mean, we've only had 2 shows, that being A block, B block. So, still a long way to go. Still over a month to go, so yeah. However, that's it for the World of Wrestling podcast. I'm Slim, obviously. Just to reiterate from the start of the podcast, Whale Dog, do not answer my call out within 7 days. You are declared a pussy. And if you do, well, then you've proven that you're not. But yeah, other than that, I'm going to end this now. So, thanks for watching. Like and share the video. Whale Dong, let me know in the comments. Subscribe to the channel, hit the notification bell if you want. I don't care if you do or not. Probably should, just so you get notified when we post videos. But other than that, goodbye and good night.